Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Straight away get to the top stocks that are moving and shaking in trade with our entire research team. Ekta, you've got an update on Suboxone?
Well, you know, it's not a recent update with regards to Dr. Reddy's, but it seems as though the movement on the Dr. Reddy's this week itself has been a lot of optimism based on what the recent developments on Suboxone are. So the stock itself is, up around 6% on a week-to-date basis. The incremental update that came in on Suboxone earlier in this week is that the US court is going to listen to the appeal which is filed by Dr. Reddy's on an expedited level. So that's going to be in the first 2 weeks of October odd. And this is versus, no sort of timeline, and, a timeline could be a year and a half. So what this means is that there is more optimism that we could probably hear on that Suboxone appeal, where there is a preliminary injunction against Dr. Reddy's from selling that product. And hence, we could probably see some amount of, sales accumulated in case the court rules in favor of Dr. Reddy's come October. So that is the development that the street is probably watching very closely, and that's the reason why you're seeing the stock move up this week.
Okay, thanks so much for that, Ekta. Well, let's hop across to Sonia. She's here to tell us about the auto sales numbers. Sonia.
Well, thanks for that. The ones that came in post-market hours yesterday were largely disappointing. The most disappointing of the lot was Eicher Motors, because the Royal Enfield sales have come in at the lowest level in the last 11 months. Clearly, we're seeing growth slow down for Royal Enfield. The waiting period for most of their products has gone down as well. We don't know if it's some sort of a structural shift, but there is definitely something to be worried about. This time, Royal Enfield sales grew just 7% at 69,000 units, compares to an average of 74 to 76,000 units for the last 6 months. So that's the way this, the cookie has crumbled for them. For Hero MotoCorp as well, there's nothing alarming, but the sales are marginally lower than street estimates. So the total sales growth has been just 9% year on year. This compares to Bajaj Auto's 30% growth. TVS Motor was also in double digits. For Hero MotoCorp, the total sales on a month-on-month basis have gone down by about 4%. So that is something to worry about. Remember, the previous 2 months saw 7 lakh plus units, and this month they've seen, in the month of July, they've seen 6.79. So there's a slowdown there. And finally, for Tata Motors, the domestic numbers were very good. There's no impact yet of the trucker strike or the axle load changes, but all the street is focused on is the Jaguar Land Rover slowdown. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Ekta, over to you on the Piramal demerger.
Well, these are just reports which are doing the rounds right now with regards to Piramal, which could be contemplating a demerger in Piramal Enterprises. Now, remember that Piramal Enterprises initially only comprised of the pharmaceutical business. Eventually, the financial services business was, started within the operations itself. So the street is contemplating that the demerger of the two businesses could be something which could be on the cards. So eventually, the pharmaceutical business, which is around 36% of total sales, could be separated, and the financial business, which is over 50% of sales and has risen from a little over 40% in FY18, could be separated from the two businesses, and Piramal Enterprises would eventually become a holding company for both of those. It is a logical step for the company to take, considering that both the businesses are now reported together, and hence we could probably expect this. These are reports. We haven't verified the reports independently.
Okay, as we speak, the stock hits 3,000 rupees, up more than 22% in the last 1 month itself. But the other stock that's been an absolute, great performer in the last 1 year or so is HEG. Remember, for the first quarter, the numbers look great. The Q1 EPS was at around 190 rupees, which was the share price close to around 18 months ago. We spoke to the management earlier today, Mr. Ravi Jhunjhunwala, and he said he's sounding optimistic about the outlook for FY19. Let's hear him out.
10 years or so, our policy has been, our payout ratio has been between 30 and 35%. And given the extraordinary numbers that we saw last year, our last year's payout was about 38%. And I believe we will, there's no reason to believe that we will not continue with this level. And 35 to 40% payout is a fairly large number. And I'm sure we'll keep doing that. Last year, our run rate was about 80%, and for the year, we had guided to high 80s. So that ramping up is happening. It hasn't happened much in the first quarter, but going forward, this ramping up from the low 80s to, let's say, high 80s is going to happen over the next 3 quarters or so. So the tonnages are going to go up slightly.
All right, and in a setback for Reliance Communication, Ericsson has objected to the settlement terms with Reliance Communication. Ashmit joins us for more on that. Ashmit, what could be the reason for that?
Well, before we get into the reasons, just to give the viewers the benefit of perspective, Ericsson was an operational creditor that had sought outstanding dues of nearly 1,600 crore rupees. However, after mediation by the NCLAT, the two parties had decided to settle the payment at 550 crore rupees. Subsequent to that, the matter came up before Apex Court, only as a matter of procedure, wherein both the parties were required to express their consent for the settlement and then perhaps close the matter. But what's critical here, in what appears to be a U-turn, Ericsson has clarified its position that it is objecting to the settlement in its current shape and form. It's objecting to the terms of settlement that are being laid down by RCOM, that it is not agreeable towards it. So it does, in a manner of speaking, perhaps look like a U-turn as of this stage. What's important is that the Apex Court will be hearing the arguments of Ericsson tomorrow morning. But from what we learned from sources, after speaking to various sources, we understand that there are outstanding issues between both the sides in terms of arriving at a common terms of payment as far as the settlement amount is concerned. Keep in mind that the settlement amount is 550 crore rupees. There are questions over the terms of that payment, which is now angered Ericsson. Of course, the matter will be argued tomorrow. Now, what's interesting is that this comes on the back of the DoT looking to cancel the spectrum that had been allotted to RCOM. That is another area of concern for the lenders. The lenders have written to the DoT to reconsider their decision. And now this development here with Ericsson perhaps doing a U-turn, this could spell trouble going forward as far as the RCOM-RGO deal is concerned. All eyes now on tomorrow morning on Ericsson's arguments before the Apex Court. Back to you.
Okay, all right. Thanks so much for that, Ashmit. But Lata's with us. Lata, tell us, what kind of impact can it have on banks?
Well, they're trying to put out so many fires on the RCOM front. Basically, if Ericsson succeeds in telling the Supreme Court that they are not agreeable, then the case comes back to the NCLT. Then it's a long process, which all of you are very familiar with. The Committee of Creditors will have to appoint an RP, and the RP will then ask for all the bids for the various parts. Maybe through that process, LGO will come and pick up a part. But, the whole thing gets postponed, and it's an awful lot of money. Not all of which has been provided for. It's a 45,000 crore debt tag now. When last reported in FY17, I think RCOM said that the debt on its books is 39,000 crore, but it gets accumulated interest. And when we last heard on the SDR, on December 26th, when Anil Ambani held a press conference on RCOM saying that they are not going to avail of SDR. At that time, he said 45,000 crore. Of which $3 billion is owed to Chinese banks. So that's maybe about 20,000 crore. Then you're left with a balance about a little over 20,000 crore. Some of it is FCCBs also. A balance 20,000 crore. And the most, ICICI Access have very little of this, if at all, if any at all. It's largely SBI, the consortium leader. And then there's Canara, BOI, BOB, PNB, IDBI, all of them. And therefore, they must have provided, according to analysts, they're just guessing broadly 25% of the total loan. And therefore, a huge amount of provisioning will come in because you have to wait till the NCLT process gets over. And remember, the NCLT is full in terms of capacity and its ability to hear cases. So this could stretch rather badly and spoil the provisioning numbers for FY19.